Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Experts of the Americas conversation. My name is Pepe. I'm an Associate Director and Fellow at the Adrienne Arsht Latin America Center here at the Atlantic Council. And today it is a pleasure for us to welcome Adam Aft, who is a partner at Baker McKenzie, based out of Chicago. And Adam is really an expert on a lot of technology-related issues, digital transformation, M&A, and technology transactions. We talk about data, technology, intellectual property. Adam's your guy, and he also leads the firm's North America Technology Transaction Group and also co-leads the group globally. So, Adam, what a pleasure it is to have you today.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be on.
Fantastic, Adam. So we have a few questions, and we'll try to squeeze them in, all of them in if possible. The first question really ties into this amazing survey that Baker McKenzie recently put out specifically on cloud, in which you guys interviewed 500 global organizations across 11 key markets. And according to that survey, a lot of interesting data points, but one of the first things I saw was that when it comes to digital transformation, cloud specifically seems to be the #1 investment area. And about 85% of respondents said that. So walk us through that a little bit. Why do you think that is? And what seems to be the top 3 benefits, just to limit our scope here, top 3 benefits associated with cloud investment for enterprises?
Sure. So it's funny, we now call this the Digital Transformation and Cloud Survey, but in earlier iterations, we had only called it the Cloud Survey, as that was something that we had identified in working with our clients early on as a notable area of digital transformation, having a real impact on the enterprise and on our clients' way of doing business. So we started out just looking at cloud. As that's evolved, we've seen a lot more areas of digital transformation, but as you rightly identified from the survey results, cloud really remains the most prominent of the digital transformation strategies that our respondents are using. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but like you said, kind of the top 3 helps give a little bit of a flavor of what exactly those reasons are that are driving continued cloud usage and adoption in new ways that it hadn't been previously adopted. The first one, the top 3 are cost, security, and flexibility, but there's a little bit more to go into that. Cost is relatively straightforward. We all kind of understand that if there's an opportunity for cost reduction, most enterprises will look for that as a good opportunity. Interestingly enough, our survey results did indicate there's also some potential accounting benefits when moving from a CapEx to an OpEx model from an on-prem servers that have a longer life to an OpEx model with use of cloud computing. So even cost, there's a little bit to unpack there, but for the most part, I'll get to the others because I think they're a little bit more interesting. Security is going to be the most interesting. We'll talk soon about some of the concerns around data privacy and security, but our respondents really indicated there's the economies of scale that come in the one-to-many cloud infrastructure of having data security done on that cloud shared infrastructure level rather than trying to do it on an each tenant basis. So it's both a benefit and, as we'll see, it presents one of the challenges. And then finally, flexibility. That really is an area that the cloud has always presented as a major selling point. And our respondents indicated that flexibility across areas from scalability to mobility. So rather than the types of long-term investment and planning it takes to stand up some of this infrastructure in-house, having the ability to have that infrastructure on demand is really a notable benefit of cloud that we continue to see come up year over year in our survey responses.
Thank you for that. And I should highlight that the survey has been a very valuable product over the past year. So I encourage folks to also check out previous editions of that for comparison purposes. Now, picking up on one of the points you mentioned, Adam, specifically on the security point, I think this is a good angle to think about some of the risk and concerns associated with cloud. And as you mentioned, security is a good example of we see major benefits and potentially some major concerns. But let's just think about this in a more general way. What are some top concerns that you guys have identified in this survey about increased cloud computing? In addition to security, walk us through that a little bit. Is there anything else?
Yeah, there's a number of points that come around beyond security, migration type, integration type issues, control of data type issues. But I'll come back first to security. As I mentioned, that was kind of the most interesting because it's a little counterintuitive. You would reasonably say, wait, you just told me security was one of the main benefits. How can it be when you said what are some of the main concerns that security is also one of the main concerns? And of course, anyone who works in this space regularly appreciates that that's one of the challenges presented by cybersecurity risk in today's marketplace is it's very prominent, and everyone is doing their best to mitigate that risk. One way can be moving to a cloud architecture that has certain security enhancements, but also in doing so, it goes to this notion of giving up a little bit of control and having a little bit less ability to manage directly, indirectly, of course, through sourcing cloud services, but manage directly some of those cybersecurity risks. So that's why we think our survey respondents continue to tell us that even though it's a main benefit, data security is one of those concerns. As I mentioned, there's also migration and integration. Everyone who has identified the benefits of a digital transformation project or a cloud migration has spoken very highly to those benefits, but there are some challenges along the way, and maybe we'll have a moment later to discuss some of the practical ways we've seen to mitigate that. But those do come up as kind of an area of concern about the cloud. And then finally, like I mentioned, control, whether it's direct control from a cybersecurity perspective or control of data or managing service levels where uptime and downtime are those based on the cloud provider, not based on your own IT systems and team. There are some of those challenges as well presented. So again, overwhelmingly from the start of our discussion, a positive view and move to the cloud, but there are still some challenges and some headwinds as enterprises, as our respondents told us, continue to migrate and use the cloud.
Thanks for that, Adam. And it's obviously interesting and important to hear about both the benefits and concerns from an enterprise perspective. The next question, I wanted to take that same framework as we look at some of the benefits or opportunities, and on the other side, some of the costs and potential concerns or challenges. But zoning in Latin America and the Caribbean, the Atlantic Council obviously is global in scope, but our center, the Adrienne Arsht Latin America Center, focuses specifically on Latin America and the Caribbean as a region, which is a very dynamic region when it comes to digital transformation and cloud opportunities. So tell us about what you see in our region in particular. In Latin America, what are some unique cloud opportunities or challenges facing firms, whether that's they're in LATAM or companies are trying to explore this region as a business market?
Yeah, it's a really interesting. I was so glad to have the chance to speak with you in this audience, because it gave me a good opportunity to go zero in specifically on the data from the region. And I'm glad I did, because it was really fascinating what we learned. There's kind of two really interesting things. One is, for the benefits of cloud in Latin America, we identified, our respondents told us, that increased storage was a significant benefit as compared to other regions. But increased use of compute power, our respondents in Latin America did not highlight as high of a benefit as compared to other regions, which to me seems to be a huge opportunity for potential growth in the region as there's a continued evolution and maturation of the technology, applications such as artificial intelligence through machine learning models that require a substantial processing of data that require not just the infrastructure, but the scalable compute power in order to be able to do that type of product development and use those types of products. To me, that seems to be just a significant and fantastic opportunity. And I look forward in our future surveys to see where the region goes in terms of whether there's an uptick in that use of compute power in addition to storage. So that's really kind of a next evolution of use of cloud we've seen in other regions that I'm excited to see for this region. The other is really the regulatory risk, which is a much more significant concern from our respondents in Latin America compared to other regions. So everyone identified, all of our respondents identified regulatory risk as some area of concern, but that percentage was much higher from Latin American respondents. We suspect one reason is a continuing education and evolution with the regulators. So for example, if we're helping our clients in the financial services industry, working with banking regulators, having those discussions around migration of core banking services to the cloud is really an area that continues to evolve and continues to require a lot of education and good dialogue. And so that makes sense to us why we would see, for example, an increased regulatory concern in Latin America compared to some of the other regions, perhaps.
Thanks for that, Adam. I think both points are very interesting, and I see them almost as the infrastructure point. On the first point, it's more about hard infrastructure. I think that the region in general has limited, and I would say in some cases inadequate digital infrastructure, and that's a huge area of opportunity and challenge for the region. And from the center. We've done quite a lot of work on that. And the second part of it is I almost see that as soft infrastructure, the regulatory side of things. And then you other experts from Baker McKenzie are so helpful in helping not just us, but also policy makers and clients navigating some of these opportunities and challenges. So great to hear your perspective on that. In the interest of time, let me just pose one last question to you, kind of picking up a point you mentioned at the top, which is the cloud survey initially was just going to be on cloud, and then it talked about other issues in the digital transformation. You even mentioned AI a little earlier, which I believe show up in the survey as well a little bit. But zoning out here, just thinking about broader digital transformation for companies here, what are some top barriers for scaling up or accelerating digital transformation in general? And the question here is because, we know that this is a huge opportunity. We talk about this at the policy level, at the company level, but I'd love to hear some of the practical concerns and barriers for scaling here. In your experience, how have you advised clients to kind of navigate and overcome some of these barriers?
Yeah, it's an interesting area. It's one that as attorneys, one thing we're actually quite good at is asking questions, and we found that to be a powerful practical tool in our arsenal, helping our clients engage in these digital transformation projects. A lot of our survey respondents said digital transformation to them is actually just business process improvements, right? It's not completely new lines of business, new ways of doing business. It's just doing what they do better and more efficiently with use of digital tools. Well, that's great, but what it entails is us working with our clients to identify, okay, what is the function that does that internally? How is that going to be managed from a governance perspective? Do you need to put additional controls in place internally, or do you need to have specific governance provisions in your contract where you're going to have multiple providers that need to work with each other and collaborate? And where will you have the tools in your contract arsenal to bring those parties to the table, really to practically manage that? Some of these digital transformation projects can be challenging just to get right. It seems intuitive, there's new technology, plug and go, but oftentimes it's a little bit more complicated than that. So having that governance and that planning around how it's going to occur with asking questions up front can be really powerful. The other way is just how to manage some of the upsides of the opportunity while still balancing and mitigating risks. And one of the more effective ways we've seen to do that is a thoughtful approach through the contracting process. How are you negotiating provisions like your limitations on liability? How are you checking those against your other provider contract, or if you're sourcing as an enterprise cloud computing in order to provide a cloud product or service yourself, how are you checking that from a back-to-back perspective, and really still focusing on that huge upside, but managing risk as you go along the way. So those are a couple of ways that we've focused specifically on helping unlock the value from the digital transformation project, while still keeping a careful eye on risk and risk mitigation.
And thanks for that, Adam. Great to have talked to you about the upsides, the downsides, the different purposes, different mechanisms, different modalities within the cloud space and digital space, and how to navigate that from a private sector perspective. And it's so great to always to hear your insight. And you said that lawyers are great at asking questions, so it's good to be able to turn this around and asking you a few questions about this. And we look forward to having you back and obviously hear insight and guidance in some of these cloud and digital related topics. And folks, please stay tuned. And thank you again, Adam, for doing this Experts of the Americas episode with us.
Wonderful. Great to be with you today. Thanks so much.